everybody. Hello. I am so grateful to be here, and I want to start with a counterintuitive statement. There is this mistake people make about presidential elections, and we've heard it from somebody who I won't mention who says, only I can solve all the problems. We have to remember how change is made. It wasn't a whole bunch of fellas in the early 1900s who gathered together on the Senate floor and said, it's about time those women have the right to vote. That's not how it happened. It wasn't Strom Thurmond coming to the Senate floor and saying, I have seen the light, those Negro people should have some civil rights. No, change does not come from Washington, it comes to Washington by people who fight for it and struggle for it and organize for it. I began my career in the streets of Newark, New Jersey as a 20-something organizing tenants who often had been felt isolated and separated by slumlords who were not providing safe, decent, sanitary housing. And we beat them because of the power of the people. The power of the people is always greater than the people in power. And so you all are here not because of an individual candidate, and this election season can't be just about an individual office. We have to talk about the deeper dissatisfaction in our country because of the anti-democratic forces. You all are here because I know you join my feeling to be dissatisfied that we live in a nation, as my friend Brian Stevenson says, that has a criminal justice system that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. You all are dissatisfied, like me, that we live in a nation where millions of children find it easier to get unleaded gasoline than unleaded water. You all are like me, that you're dissatisfied that in this great nation, we have millions of people who work full-time jobs, but dignity has been stripped of the work, a tax on union, and you have more and more Americans now finding themselves with more month at the end of their money than money at the end of their month. You all are dissatisfied that we live in a nation where the growth of corporate power has gotten so much that they are now finding ways, as they have in the past, to publicize the costs on society and privatize their profits. Now, everything I just mentioned was going on before Donald Trump was elected. We have to be serious about what's happening. I'm traveling all over the country now, and I see from Iowa to South Carolina that it's not just about who's president. State legislatures are attacking public education. State legislatures, like we see, are attacking the right to organize in states. This period in American history has to be about more than just one office and one person. It has to be that moral moment in our nation, like the civil rights movement, where we expand the consciousness of our country and return the power in this nation to the people. And power concedes nothing without a demand. We must organize, we must fight, and even after Election Day in 2020, whoever is president and whoever the Democratic nominee, all of us must line up in solidarity behind them. And when we win that office back, that office holder must lead the greatest grassroots organizing efforts we ever seen to secure in this nation, again, a country where public education is fully funded, to secure in this nation where we have a criminal justice system that is not known for jailing the mentally ill, jailing the addicted, jailing the poor, but is about restorative justice, about empowering people. We've got to return to a nation that favors unions and gives them the power they need to organize and to grow and not shrink and decrease. We need presidents that are going to organize for our rural brothers and sisters, living in communities that are being hollowed out and disinvested. This has got to be a different kind of election because there's too many of our brothers and sisters that are hurting. I live in an amazing city, in an amazing community. I'm proud to be the only one in this election living in a black and brown inner city neighborhood, and right now the median income is below the poverty line. I see my neighbors who work full-time jobs but still need food stamps at our local bodega. Shahad Smith, who I lived with in the projects for almost 10 years, was murdered with an assault rifle at the top of my block. I live in a country where black men like me, we're 6% of the nation's population, but we make up over half of all the homicide victims in this country. We live in a nation right now that if you're born in communities like mine, this deck is stacked against you. We have got to make this a nation where the dream and the ideals of this country work for every American, where we live up to our ideals that all men and women are created equal, where the oath we pledge are not just words from our mouths, but a reality in America that we are a nation of liberty and justice for all. And so, I'm looking forward to answer your questions, but for me, I'm not running for president because of an office or position. For me, life is always about purpose and not position. I got into politics as a Central Ward councilman because of communities like mine, too many people being left out, too many people being left aside. We must be about the purpose of this nation, the dream of this country. I am fighting to run for president because I think we can reignite that dream again, bigger than any individual. And that's where I want to end. I want to challenge everyone, and I'm excited about answering your questions, but we are next week going to be at the 51st anniversary of the murder of Martin Luther King in Memphis. And if you go there to Memphis, Tennessee, and you look down right there at the Lorraine Motel, you are going to see words from Scripture that are a challenge to future generations. They're the words that Joseph's brothers uttered when they saw him in his coat of many colors, that dream interpreter, and they grabbed him and they threw him into the well to die. Well, there are many Americans now that feel isolated in a well, feel like the promises of this country ring hollow with their experiences. The question is, will we be like Joseph, who went from the pit to the palace? And so right there where Martin Luther King shot are some words that Joseph's brothers uttered when they saw Joseph in the desert. And the first time I read them, I took them as a challenge to us. Right where King was slain, what are those words? It says, "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Let us slay him and see what becomes of his dream." What will become of the dream of America? Well, I tell you right now, it is time for this generation to dream again. It is time for us to reclaim and reinvigorate the dream. It's time for us to dream again of a nation that every child has a great public school to go to. It's time for us to dream again that every family has health care, that it's universal for all. It's time for us to dream again that work has dignity and all can retire with security. It's time for us to dream again. Bold dreams and defiant dreams and daring dreams and the humble dreams of America. And if we stand together and work together and dream together, I promise you that this election will be more than just taking one person out of office. This will be the beginning of the next era of America, where dreams are not just words or songs, but a reality for all. Thank you.
Yes. All right. I gotta give you a high five on that one. Thank you. Come sit with us, Senator Booker. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is just the beginning.
Amen.
All right. So we've got some questions from our people for you. Just so you know, Ana Maria is on your left side. She may give you a little tap because we know you have a gift for the word if we're running out of time here. So with that, Senator, kicking us off with the first question of the day is Joe Mayhew, the Secretary-Treasurer of CWA Local 1103 in Westchester, New York.
My neighbor.
Yes, yes.
My neighbor.
Yes. Joe is a veteran of the United States Air Force, a former operating engineer, and he joined CWA when he went to work at Verizon as a cable splicer 28 years ago. Now, Joe is a leader and a community builder in every sense of the word, working on campaigns all across the region, particularly most recently for the New York's campaign for the Fair Elections program. Joe, we're happy to have you, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you.
Joe, thank you very much, man.
Absolutely. I just want to first welcome you here and thank you for taking our questions today. And with that said, my union, CWA, is very politically active in New York and across the country. And the truth be told, we make a lot of campaign contributions. Some of them are pretty sizable. But we at CWA have no illusions about who really benefits from the current campaign finance system. We will never be able to compete dollar for dollar with the telecom giants, Wall Street, the real estate industry, and all the other corporate interests who buy political power and influence with their huge donations. Senator, I appreciate that you have pledged not to take corporate PAC money. But large individual donations, particularly from the employees of Wall Street and corporate law firms, have been a major source of campaign money for you in the past. For example, a large number of contributions have come from the law firm Sullivan and Cromwell. They are the top leading advisor to Wells Fargo. Senator, as you know, Wells Fargo has been guilty of massive fraud against consumers and has also fought CWA's efforts tooth and nail to stop us from organizing bank workers. Look, the point is this. In the current system, money from these bad corporate actors and those that profit from their actions is drowning our democracy. There is only one real solution: ending the system of elections being financed primarily by large private campaign contributions. So, my question to you, Senator, if elected president, will you support the creation of a small donor public financing system for all federal elections?
So first of all, Joe, thank you for your question. We have a campaign finance system right now that is corruptive. And since Citizens United especially, we are seeing dark money flood into our elections. Even the money that candidates raise themselves is a small fraction of the overall billions of dollars that are being poured into elections. That's why I took, well before I was running for president, the End Citizens United's pledge. That wasn't just about pledging to end Citizens United as a senator or should I be president, but it's also about my own individual habits. And that's why I'm not only not taking corporate PAC money, I'm not taking pharma exec money, I'm not taking corporate federal lobbyist money. We believe you cannot campaign wrong and govern right. To your question, I pledge as President of the United States that not only will I work to tear down and end that Citizens United decision, but that I am going to set up and fight for a campaign finance system that favors small dollar contributions the same way that I'm running my campaign. But I want to go to some other issues you talked about. Because the good thing about my record is it wasn't just as a senator. My record goes all the way back to being a mayor of a low-income city that I fought through the worst recession there is. And folks have looked at my voting record, independent people, and when it comes to Wall Street, for example, as one independent observer looked, we have taken not only the stands to fight against the rollback of Dodd-Frank, but taken the positions of Wall Street, as one independent group says, 0 times. Because I go home to Newark, New Jersey. Life is about purpose, not position. My neighbors work minimum wage jobs. They are struggling. My fight and my loyalty since the day I first ran for office in 1998 has been with the kind of folks that, many of them are members of your union. The kind of folks that work at the airport in Newark, who clean planes, the people who deliver meals, but don't get paid what they deserve or living wage. We are at a time of corporate profits at an 85-year high and wages are at a 60-year low. We have seen the stripping away of dignity as outsourced workers and others are having their wages and benefits pushed down as corporates pad their profits. And even when they try to pay folks like American Airlines did, the Wall Street downgrades their stock for making the decision to honor workers. So not only will I fight to change our campaign finance system, but I am going to do things that change the incentives to make sure we get back to an economy where corporations value workers. And even more than that, where corporations who violate workers' rights and workers' dignity pay a price for that. Let's use pharmaceutical companies, for example. Right now, we have perverse incentives that give pharmaceutical companies all kind of tax breaks and even periods of monopolistic control over drugs. We grant them that in this country. They call it exclusivity. Well, I have legislation that I believe, if I become president, I can make law where if a pharmaceutical company raises their prices in our country higher than that in other countries, then we not only don't allow it, but if they do it, we take away their patent and let other generics come in and undercut the cost of their drugs. This is about writing the rules of the game that favor labor again, because labor is under attack. And these are rules that have allowed it. Even things like stock buybacks used to be illegal in our country back in the 1980s. We need to get back to rules of the game that benefit workers and benefit struggling families who are just trying to afford the basics in their lives, from childcare all the way to the cost of prescription drugs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator.
Actually, the next question is a bit related to what you just discussed. So I want to take us back to the question of how we make campaigns be rooted in the aspirations of people. You have a very strong record on criminal justice reform, but as you know, the private prison industry actually exercises a tremendous amount of pressure in our democracy through lobbying and campaign donations, campaign contributions. The private prison industry has seen a boom under President Trump with the increase in detentions and deportations, especially. Major banks like JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, recently announced that they were getting out of the business of financing the caging of humans, thanks to the organizing of people in these rooms. But so, what would you do to limit their influence in our democracy?
So this is something that is so, forget what I'm running for. My life has been about trying to tear down this system of mass incarceration. It is such a cancer on the soul of our country that since 1980, we've seen our prison population in America go up 500%. And you can tell a lot about a country by who they incarcerate. In Russia, they incarcerate political opposition. In Turkey, they incarcerate the free press. Here in America, look at our prisons and jails. We incarcerate the mentally ill. We incarcerate the addicted. We incarcerate the poor. The women we incarcerate in America, let's be clear, over 80% are survivors of sexual trauma, rape, and physical abuse. And we overwhelmingly incarcerate black and brown people. There is no difference in America between blacks and whites in using drugs or dealing drugs. In fact, there's not only no difference, but we are overwhelmingly driving incarceration on the drug war. In 2017 alone, there were more marijuana arrests, marijuana possession arrests and convictions in America than all violent crimes combined. And so black and white, no difference between using marijuana or dealing marijuana, but blacks are almost 4 times more likely to be incarcerated for it. This is become, as Michelle Alexander calls it in her book, the new Jim Crow, because we all know when you have a conviction for doing things that 2 of the last 3 presidents admitted to doing, that now you can't get a job, you can't get a business license, you can't get a loan from a bank, you can't get public housing. In many states, you can't vote. And so this system is something I have been fighting against since I was in college. My time as mayor was trying to dismantle the system. My time, when I ran for Senate, my pollster told me, hey, this is not a popular issue, don't talk about it. And I go, leaders don't follow consensus, they mold it. So I've been to private prisons to visit them and see what they're doing. Their rates of security for the inmates, as well as even for the prison guards, is lower than that of those. Nobody should profit off of the incarceration of other people. I am against private prisons. I will not only fight to lower their quota, I will fight to end them in our country because that should not happen. And I will continue my fight to end mass incarceration in America, which is a waste of taxpayer dollars. Our infrastructure is crumbling, and all we seem to be doing is building prisons and jails to warehouse human potential.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. This is clearly an urgent challenge that demands a concrete solution. Next up, we have Yannette Casedo, a member of Make the Road Action and Center for Popular Democracy Action, and a community leader and advocate for immigrant rights. Yannette is a Colombian immigrant. Yes. And she lives and works in New Jersey. She holds a master's degree in business administration.
Where in New Jersey? Elizabeth, you're my neighbor.
All right, Yannette, the floor is yours.
My name is Yannette Caicedo. I live in Elizabeth, New Jersey. I came to the United States 17 years ago because I fear for my safety in my country, Colombia. I also came because I think that this is a place of justice. When I came, I had already my MBA. I began working in a warehouse, and with my hard work, now I'm the customer service and operation manager for a big company. My concern today is about corporations like Google, Facebook, and Amazon, because they hold too much political and economic power. Not only they don't pay the fair share of taxes, but the concentration of power stifles competition, weakens workers' power, fuels affordable housing crisis, ignores our environment, risks our democracy, and allows for surveillance and abuse of information and data. The antitrust law created a century ago were meant to stop this kind of corporations and to stop this dangerous power over our economy and our democracy. This has been not working, and because it's not working, our community, the people, the elected officials, and we, the people, are fighting back these powerful corporations. I want to ask you, what will you do to challenge monopolies so that we are protected from systemic corporate power that abuses our families and our communities? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So this is something that I have been fighting on with legislation and determination across the board when it comes to the concentration of corporate power in this country and how it's hurting everybody from the farm industry to the pharma industry. This unchecked corporate power and monopsony power, in other words, the pressure they put to lower wages as well, is something that's unacceptable. And so I've fought from no poaching clauses and things that protect workers against monopolistic power. I've been calling for the Department of Justice and other agencies within the administration to begin to check monopolistic power. Specifically about Silicon Valley's power that we're seeing, we have no rules. We need to have better regulations to protect our privacy and our security, because right now they are profiting off of our private data in ways that I think violate our basic fundamental freedoms and rights. And so if I am president of the United States, I'm going to make sure that we start to use our antitrust laws and have judges be appointed that will go back to those wild and crazy days before 1980, when we used to do a lot better job of enforcing antitrust laws and broke up big companies during my childhood. Right now, we are seeing trends that are working against the average American. Again, corporate profits are growing, suppression of wages, taking away, in fact, profiting off of workers. And let me use an area that we just don't talk about enough, which is what's going on in rural America amongst farmers. I've gone out and sat with farmers, and right now we see a disappearance of the independent family farm because of this concentration of corporate power. These large corporate agricultural institutions that are destroying our environment, as well as these CAFOs that are doing things that we all find offensive. The share of farmers, our producers, of the consumer dollars continue to shrink as other people are now profiting off of theirs being squeezed. This is something that's going on in every sector of our economy, and I'm going to stop it. And por favor, rápidamente en español. La situación ahora es inaceptable. Voy a luchar contra este poder porque tú eres correcto. Las acciones de los corporaciones son terribles. So dame su confianza, voy a luchar contra este y voy a tener una justicia más grande en nuestro país. Okay? Thank you very much.
Right. Okay.
I'm not going to do a follow-up.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, we've got one more person we'd like you to hear from. Next up, we're going to hear from Rachel Mayore from Northampton, Massachusetts. Rachel is a lifelong social justice activist and community health organizer, and really, she's a force of nature. Right. After the financial crisis of 2008 left Rachel's family with three young children financially devastated, she didn't just get mad. She got organized. She organized support campaigns for the Dodd-Frank Act to rein in the predatory bank system. Now, she's a director of her local's Women's March. She was featured in Glamour magazine, y'all, for her organizing work around the fight to repeal the ACA. Rachel has organized airport protests against a Muslim ban. She's organized her city to achieve sanctuary city status. And most recently, she organized for the Fight for 15 and for paid family leave.
All right,
Rachel, we're happy to have you.
Thank you, Rachel. When you said you were in Glamour magazine, you touched your hair. It's something I really can't do. I don't know if I have any chance of ever being in Glamour.
You're missing out.
I'm missing out.
Sorry.
I save a lot of money on product, though.
True. Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to let you know that I am very much looking forward to the 2020 elections.
Yes.
And beyond.
Yes, beyond is really important.
Yeah, there are some big, beautiful, progressive ideas being put forth, from Green New Deal, which addresses income equality while addressing climate change. I mean, that's something I think about every day with 3 young kiddos, and they ask me about it. To Medicare for All, which for struggling families like mine gives us access, affordable access to basic health care. To justice for immigrant families. They are just like me. They want a decent life for themselves and for their kids. And you know, I and so many others have been fighting for these ideas for years. Here's the thing. I need to see progress in my lifetime. The future of my children, the future of everybody's children, absolutely depends on it. But we know that these life or death policies will face a 60-vote threshold in the Senate. A reality that allows for relentless Republican obstruction. How will you overcome this obstacle to ensure that your bold reforms that you champion can actually become a reality? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to stand this because I feel the same way. First of all, I support Medicare for all. I support the Green New Deal. These are issues that are at the core of who I am because of, again, where I live and the urgencies of my neighborhood, which are obviously felt by your family. I support an immigration system that reflects our values, and what's going on is moral vandalism right now, is violating human rights and making us less safe in communities like mine because you have ICE agents raiding schools and raiding workplaces. And so the question you have is, how do you get things done, Cory, in a 60-vote threshold? And should we, some people are saying, let's get rid of the filibuster, and I feel that same sense of urgency. But let me tell you what I worry about. In my community, if Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, and Donald Trump had 2 years like they just had, without me in the Senate and other noble progressives who fought them with you to prevent the taking away of health care, we would have lost that battle. Obamacare would be gone. And in my community, what those 3 men could have done, they could have defunded Planned Parenthood. They could have taken away a woman's right to choose. You see what Donald Trump's budget is. They could have taken away Medicare, cut it by billions of dollars, cut Medicaid by billions of dollars. And so when I get up every day and see my communities, vulnerable communities, what they could do without the filibuster, and so let me tell you what I believe. As an African American in this country, I know, as I said in my beginning remarks, that we didn't get civil rights because of a Senate that wanted it to happen. The longest filibuster in our country's history was a racist rant of a filibuster blocking civil rights reform by Strom Thurmond, who I talked about. But we overcame that by organizing all around America. Not only did we win civil rights, but we ushered in a Democratic majority that lasted for years and years and years because we got active and organized. And what bothers me now, and I've seen it, this is why I worry about making this election about one person and one office, is because if Donald Trump is removed and we all go back to doing what we were doing in 2014 and 2012, we are going to lose the House of Representatives. We could lose the Senate and lose our ability to get a progressive agenda done. This is not about one person. It's about how much are we going to get off the sidelines and into the game like you did, because I'll tell you this, the opposite of justice is not injustice, it's apathy, inaction, and indifference. And so if I'm your president, like I said in my introductory remarks, because this is one of the most important points, you are going to see me pushing to do grassroots organizing, because I know the facts. Texas is a blue state already. All we got to do is go out and organize, folks. Iowa, blue state, there are blue states all over. If we just get out and do the organizing, and this is what makes me excited. I want to tell you a confessional here. Because somebody mentioned about going out to airports like you did. I tell you, when I went out to those airports to help people get lawyers who were being detained, I was blown away to see a packed concourse, people cheering and singing patriotic songs. That's who we are, cheering Muslim families like Abraham, welcoming strangers in the desert. I go back to tell Joe Donnelly about it from Indiana, and he says to me, we did the same thing. I went to Indianapolis Airport, packed concourse. We were hugging people coming off, except for there were no international flights. We were just hugging people coming in from Detroit. This has been the two most hopeful years of my life, not because I'm happy about who's in office, because I was taught from a woman on the 5th floor of the projects that what hope is the active conviction that despair will never have the last word. And so this is my confession to you and why I know where the power is, and it's not just in one guy running for office. This is my confession to you because I see you. When Donald Trump gave his inaugural address, I was worried. I was slipping into the seduction of despair. I thought maybe his speech would call America together, but it wasn't. It was such a bad speech that George Bush, as he's leaving, he turns to Bill Clinton, it's reported, and said, well, that was some strange shit. I go home that night. And I curl up in my bed because my mind is worrying about healthcare. My mind is worried about mercury and methane rules. My mind is worried about all these things. I'm curled up, worrying, slipping into the seduction of despair, curled up on my bed. And the next morning, a whole bunch of women like that woman who was my tenant leader, who said hope is the active conviction that despair will never have the last word. A whole bunch of women coast to coast in this country came out. And they marched, and it was like they were saying to me, Cory, this is not a time to curl up, to shut up, or to give up. This is America. We know our history. This is a time to stand up, to speak up, to rise up. Because when we stand as Americans, when we join together and fight together and work together, no filibuster can stop us. We ushered in civil rights, women's rights, workers' rights. And in this era, if we organize again, we are going to bring a progressive agenda to this country and move it forward for everyone, no matter who's in the Senate. Thank you very much, everybody.
Right.
God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Give it up for Cory Booker, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Organize. Organize.
All right.